Exclusivity, the life of spreading the Dharma. 3. Namo Amitofo. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Let's move on to the Q&A of this session. Why do we say that exclusivity is the life of propagation of Dharma in last session? We are speaking from the perspective of Buddha's vow and their true intention of liberating sentient beings. That Buddha recitation for rebirth is the core of Mahayana Buddhism. Today we will look at the third point from the perspective of benefiting and teaching sentient beings. The propagation of the Buddha recitation is the complete basic which benefits oneself as well as others. In our age, we are able to recite the Buddha's name with faith and teach others to have faith in and accept the Buddha's name. This is truly benefiting ourselves and others. There is a scripture in the Great Compassion Sutra that says, "What is the Great Compassion? If someone recites the Buddha's name consistently until the end of his life, he is certain to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. If he can persuade others to practice Buddha recitation, then you should know that he is a person who practices the Great Compassion." In Buddhism, we talk about Great Compassion. What is the Great Compassion? The Buddha has given us the answer in this sutra. If we devote ourselves to exclusively reciting the name of Amitabha Buddha, if we can continue to do so without retreating, and if we do not practice any miscellaneous practices, we will definitely be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss at the end of our lives. If we can also persuade others to recite the Buddha's name, the Buddha praises such people like us as those who practice the Great Compassion. In other words, if someone can recite the Buddha's name with faith, teach others to have faith in and accept Amitabha's salvation, exclusively recite the Buddha's name, and aspire to be reborn in Amitabha Buddha's pure land, such person is praised by the Buddha as a person of great compassion. We all know that Buddha is the person of great compassion. Master Shenna says that the Buddha is the one who fulfills and satisfies with great compassion. The term great compassion is used to describe the Buddha, but the Buddha uses it to describe us, the devotees of the Buddha recitation. And the person who teaches others to recite the Buddha's name is a person of great compassion. It is clear that Buddha recitation is the most supreme of all. The merits and virtues of persuading others to have faith in and accept Buddha recitation is also incredible. In the Buddha proclaiming the names of Buddha's sutra, Buddha said at the beginning, "He who teaches others to uphold the Buddha's name and spreads widely this teaching offers blessings as Tathagata among all sentient beings." In other words, in all places, if you can, widely spread the Buddha recitation Dharma path and teach others to uphold the name of Such persons among all sentient beings in the 10 directions offers as much blessings as the Buddha. It is called those virtues and the virtues and blessing of the Buddha. We can see that the merits and virtues of propagating Buddha recitation and advising others to practice Buddha recitation is incredibly extraordinary. We propagate Buddha recitation. We are doing what the Tathagata did. We are doing the Buddha's work. We are supporting the business of the Tathagata. So in the Sanskrit version of the Infinite Life Sutra, there is a verse that says, I did what the Tathagata did. As we propagate Buddha recitation, we are doing what the Tathagata did. Because Amitabha Buddha's wish is and that the great sound of enlightenment of the six-character name, Namo Amitabha Buddha, can spread in all 10 directions, and to every place in the 10 worlds. So we propagate this name, is to promote the great sound of enlightenment of the Buddha's name, and to be Amitabha's assistance. This is truly benefiting oneself as well as others. Shakyamuni Buddha and all the Buddhas in the 10 directions are taking the initiative to propagate this name and to assist Amitabha Buddha. All the Buddhas in the 10 directions also want us to propagate Buddha recitation, because every Buddha is recommending Amitabha Buddha. Why? Because Amitabha Buddha is the king of all Buddhas and the teacher of all Buddhas. All Buddhas are born in the land of ultimate bliss. So that is why, according to the sutra, all the Buddhas of Dharma body, reward body, and manifest body are born from the land of ultimate bliss. Let's tell a story. Once there was a monk who asked Zen Master Zhao Zhao, do the Buddhas have teachers? Zen Master Zhao Zhao replied, yes. This monk then asked, who is the teacher of all Buddhas? The Zen Master replied, Amitabha, Amitabha. Amitabha is the teacher of all the Buddhas. Because all the Buddhas attain enlightenment by samadhi of Amitabha recitation. That is why all Buddhas praise and propagate the great sound of enlightenment of their teacher, Amitabha Buddha. Therefore, when Shakyamuni Buddha preaches the Buddha recitation Dharma path, all the Buddhas in the 10 directions appear to illuminate and attest. When we propagate Buddha recitation, all Buddhas will also illuminate and attest for us. Let's take our founder, Master Shandao, as an example. In the Tang Dynasty, all the sects were well developed. Our founder, Master Shandao, particularly propagated the Dharma of Pure Land in the capital city of Chang'an. Of course, there were also other Dharma masters who had different views from different sects and did not agree with him. They would come to compete with Master Shandao. Among them, there was a Master Vajra. I don't know whether this Mr. Vajra was named Vajra, or he studied Vajrayana. Then, during the competition, Master Shando said, according to the Buddha's teachings, sinful mortals who recite the name of Amitabha can definitely be reborn in the Western land of ultimate bliss. If this statement is true, then let all the Buddha's statues in the hall attest for me by illuminating themselves. If this statement is not true, then let me, Shando, fall from this high seat into hell. After saying this, Mr. Shando lifted up his scepter and pointed to the Buddha statues in the hall, and as a result, the statues of Shakyamuni and Amitabha in the hall were illuminated. At once the whole hall was illuminated with Buddha's light. The truth was revealed, and there was nothing more to say. So everyone was convinced. This story reminds me of the Zen master Dead Heart mentioned in the last lesson. He had admonished his disciples that if they practiced Buddha recitation and did not go to the Western land of ultimate bliss, he would fall into the hell of tongue ripping. So whether it's Monk Shando or the Zen master Dead Heart, both were patient and instructive to give us proof that Buddha recitation for rebirth in the Western Pure Land is true. So for those who say that the Buddha recitation cannot lead to rebirth, and have set a lot of thresholds for the Buddha recitation Dharma path, are you just against the ancient masters? Therefore, through Master Shando's attestation of the Buddha recitation Dharma path, that all the Buddha statues were illuminating, we can see that if we propagate the Buddha recitation, all Buddhas will praise us and feel happy. Because propagating the Buddha recitation is truly benefiting oneself as well as benefiting others. As the cultivation of the holy path is entirely dependent on self-power, one must go through and attain certain realms before he can speak the truth. If he does not go through and attain the realms, he could easily say the wrong thing, mislead a group of blind people, thus producing bad influence. Our Pure Land Dharma path is a teaching of Buddha power. All we need to do is to persuade others to recite the Buddha's name, so that if they can complete the Bodhisattva path, which benefits themselves as well as others, it is very easy. Many people say, I'm not like the masters who fully understand the teachings and are able to skillfully preach the Dharma. What should I do? In fact, when we Buddha reciters, once we are reciting the Buddha's name, we are propagating the Dharma. Because this name is the Dharma. This is the so-called the Dharma is the name is the Dharma. Master Shando says that the name manifests both the Dharma and the enlightened ones. The name that we recite is the Dharma that includes all Dharmas. As long as they hear it, they receive the benefit. That is why Yuanzhao once said, hearing and reciting the name, the infinite holy virtues are incorporated into the consciousness and become the seed of Buddha forever. How incredible are the merits and virtues of Amitabha Buddha! Even if you just hear the name of Amitabha, or just recite it mindlessly, boundless holy virtues have already entered your alaya consciousness. As the saying goes, once you hear it, it becomes the seed in your heart forever. Even if you hear one recitation of the Buddha's name, the merits and virtues of becoming a Buddha in the future have already planted the Vajra seed in your alaya consciousness. The seed will sprout sooner or later, and you will definitely become a Buddha in the future. In other words, even if you recite the Buddha's name once while you are walking, people passing by will be planted the seeds of Bodhi. Because Amitabha Buddha has made the 3 vows for saving sentient beings. The 20th vow is the vow of connection. As long as someone has made a connection with Amitabha, the 20th vow of Amitabha says that he will definitely guide and save this person in a certain life, and eventually this person will be liberated. That's why Venerable Jingyuan once said that if you recite the Buddha's name and the other people hear it, you've succeeded in propagating the Dharma by 60%. And if after the other people hearing the Buddha's name, they feel happy and reply Namo Amitabha Buddha to you, you've succeeded in propagating the Dharma by 90%. The remaining 10% is done by Amitabha Buddha. It's not our concern, so it's easy to propagate the Dharma. For example, we have a master who is not very educated, but he has a very big vow. He wants to liberate hundreds of millions of sentient beings. When I heard it, I thought he just casually said it. Later I found that every day after lunch at the monastery, he would go up to the mountains. On the way, he would recite the Buddha's name with a Buddha chanting machine. Then there was a big fish pond on the mountain. There were a lot of fish in that pond. He recited the Buddha's name while feeding the fish. Then he walked around the pond while reciting the Buddha's name for an hour every day. This is his propagation of Dharma. These fish were also very interesting, because this master fed them every day and recited the Buddha's name to them. Over time, once the fish heard the sound of the Buddha chanting, they would swim towards the Buddha reciter. If someone who doesn't recite the Buddha's name comes to the pond, they would scatter in fear and flee. You see, this is the guiding power of the name. Whenever they hear the sound of Namo Amitabha Buddha, they swim toward the sound. This master is also very skillful. He knows that before the Dharma wheel turns, the food wheel turns first, so he brings good food for them and uses food to attract them to the biting hook of the 6-character name of Namo Amitabha Buddha. By simply doing this, these fish were liberated. Just like the metaphor in the sutra. Just like a fish that swallows a hook and it is out, and it is soon out of in the water. In the Buddhist movie The Resistant Cause, which you've all seen, the husband forces his wife to slaughter the pigs by letting her to hold on to the pig's feet. She recites the Buddha's name to the pigs, and the pigs are reborn too. So how do we propagate the Dharma? If you know how to preach the sutras, you can preach the sutras, guide the enemies to recite the Buddha's name with ease. If you don't know how to preach the sutras, you can firmly recite the Buddha's name. Then you're propagating the Dharma and liberating sentient beings. Even if you don't go out, you can just firmly recite the Buddha's name at home. You are also propagating the Dharma. Because those who are destined with you, they will naturally come to you for liberation. In Venerable Tanzu's autobiography, Memories of Shadows and Dust, there is a story. What happened before he became a monk? Once he studied Buddhism with several Dharma friends. There was a Dharma friend who specialized in the study of the Shurangama Sutra and was very attentive and diligent. One day at noon, while he was studying the Shurangama Sutra, he suddenly saw his deceased wife and children come to him, asking him to liberate them. He said, "But I don't know how to liberate you." His wife said, "If you are willing, I can get your merits." So he agreed. And he saw his wife and children step on his knees and ascend to heaven. So this is the power of the sutra's merits. Not to mention Namo Amitabha Buddha, which we recite. It has all the merits and virtues. We mortals recite the Buddha's name firmly. The real merits and virtues are obtained without being sought. Naturally, we can also benefit all connected sentient beings. In this contemporary world, we call it influence. In Buddhism, we call it influence karma. Many people ask, "Master, my family doesn't believe in Buddhism. They don't practice the Buddha recitation. What can I do?" Every time I advise them, there will be arguments, which makes them to slander the Dharma. In fact, we are not doing the right thing. The Buddha said we should not preach to the people who don't believe in this Dharma. Even when the Buddha was alive, among the 900 million people in Sravasti at the time, only 300 million people believed in the Buddha. There were 300 million people who had never heard of the Buddha's teachings but had never seen the Buddha, who had heard of the Buddha's teachings but had never seen the Buddha. There were 300 million people who had neither heard the Buddha's teachings nor had seen the Buddha. Even among the relatives of the Buddha, there were some people who did not believe in the Buddhism. Likewise, the degree of faith in Buddha recitation varies from person to person. In the Contemplation Sutra, Vaidehi and the 500 maids all saw the Buddha. But the benefits they received were not the same, because their intentions were different. So we have to allow others to be different from us. And we don't have to impose on others. You must have faith. All you have to do is to make sure you have faith. If you have faith, you will naturally get benefits. There's a saying in Buddhism: if there is someone who enters samadhi in a mountain where the grass eaten by the cattle and sheep make their hair shiny, it means that if in this mountain lives an arhat, or there are some practitioners entering samadhi, when cattle and sheep come to eat the grass of this mountain, their hair will also be shiny. The mere fact that there is a practitioner entering samadhi in the mountain makes the grass of this mountain greener and the rocks shiny. The animals that eat the grass also have changes. This means that in a group or family, if there's one person who has faith in and practices the Buddha recitation, the whole family will be protected by his deed. His family will change as well gradually. So we should reflect on ourselves and start with ourselves. Do you accept and have faith in Amitabha's salvation and exclusively recite the name of Amitabha? As long as you have faith in Buddha recitation, people around you will also benefit from the merits of your Buddha recitation. This is the so-called circumstantial retribution follows. And in the Dharma of Jingyuan's collected writings, there's a story, "Give me your Buddha," which is similar to the story told by Venerable Tanzu. The story happened in a monastery. There was a cook who didn't believe in Buddhism and didn't practice Buddha recitation. But before his son passed away, he said to his father, "Give me your Buddha." The cook said, "I don't recite the Buddha's name. How can I have Buddha?" His son said, "You have a lot of Buddhas." The father replied, "Then take as much as you want. But how can I give?" The child said, "You just have to say yes." So the father agreed. Then the child was reborn. Later he found out that because he was a cook at the monastery, and the kitchen was right next to the Buddha hall, occasionally he would mindlessly hear the sound of the Buddha recitation. As a result, he accumulated infinite merits and virtues. And finally, he helped his own child be reborn. So all we need to do is focusing on Buddha's teachings, firmly upholding Buddha recitation, accepting and having faith in and exclusively reciting the Buddha's name, and aspiring to be born in the Pure Land of Amitabha. All the relatives around us and all the connected people will get benefits. The saying goes, when one person becomes a monk, his 9 generations of ancestors ascend to heaven. If they do not ascend to heaven, the Buddhas are lying. Then for our Buddha reciters, one person recites the Buddha's name and 9 generations of ancestors become Buddhas. If they don't become Buddhas, all Buddhas are lying. So we just firmly recite the Buddha's name. Those who are connected with us will also get benefits. This is propagating the Dharma. If we Buddha reciters really feel the grace of Amitabha and realize the compassion of Amitabha, we will naturally repay the Buddha's kindness with sincerity. Naturally, we will have faith and advise others to recite the name too. A lay disciple once came to me and said, "Master, someone tells me that it is enough to practice Buddha recitation hard on myself. There's no need to work so hard to propagate the Dharma. It's very difficult to propagate the Dharma. Maybe slandered, attacked, and so on. It's not worth it." Then this is wrong. In fact, the person who said that has to ask himself whether he really understands Amitabha's compassion and whether he completely has faith in and accepts Amitabha's salvation. A Buddha reciter who truly feels the grace of Amitabha will not say such things. he will naturally take the mission of propagating Buddha recitation as his own life. And he will be very happy to propagate Buddha recitation. Because we, the Buddha reciters, take Buddha recitation as our life. When we have such self-awareness, naturally we will have the intent to propagate Buddha recitation and advise others to recite the Buddha's name as their own life. Even if we suffer from slander or persecution in the process of propagating the Dharma, we will not stop our intention of propagating the Buddha recitation. For example, in the Kamakura period, about 820 years ago, there was a Venerable Anli, who was a disciple of Master Honen. He believed in Amitabha's teachings and his salvation, recited his name single-mindedly. He went to the imperial palace to preach Amitabha's salvation, and many maidens became nuns after receiving his preach. Later he was punished by the emperor and put to death. We can say that he could sacrifice his life for the Dharma. Master Honen was also implicated by this disciple, Master Anli, and was exiled to the border area. Before his departure, his disciple asked Master Honen, who was 75 years old at the time, to stop propagating the Dharma of Amitabha's salvation. Master, it is because you preached Amitabha's unconditional salvation based on his primal vow that you are implicated by disciples in exile to the borderlands. In other words, he was exiled from Kyoto to Shikoto. But when Master Honen heard what his disciples said, he firmly told them that he would not stop preaching because sentient beings couldn't accept it, or he would not be afraid to preach because of his current situations. Master Honen also said, I do not hate being exiled at all. Through this exile I can spread the Pure Land School and the Buddha recitation all the way to the people in Shikoku. Isn't it a rare opportunity? What a kindness the court gave to me. So Master Honen set off for Shikoku without hesitation. And everywhere he went, he recited and preached the Buddha's name. A lot of people took refuge in him. That he forgot about himself for the sake of the Dharma touched all of us. There is another famous professional chanting monk, Venerable Ipin, who had participated in the processional Buddha chanting since he was 35 years old. In the spring of 1282, he wanted to enter the Kamakura area to spread the Dharma, because Kamakura was an important place for Buddhism at that time, and monks of various sects were preaching there. In addition, there were many wanderers there at that time. They came to look for work and food from all over places. So at that time, people of all classes came to the small Kamakura city. Venerable Ipin also wanted to persuade more people to believe and recite the Buddha's name. So he also set out for Kamakura. But at a small mountain, the guards stopped him. At that time, Kamakura was very strict about wanderers. and Venerable Ipin dressed like a beggar. We can see that he was a very virtuous monk. Because he dressed like a beggar. So the guard didn't let him in. But the Venerable insisted in going. Then he was beaten by the guards hardly. However, he said, advise people to processional Buddha chanting as my life. If I were stopped in this way, where should I go? Why not just end my life here? Maybe the guards were convinced by Venerable Ipin's strong will and courage to liberate sentient beings. They told him that it was not forbidden to preach outside of Kamakura. So Venerable Ipin again started to do processional Buddha recitation. Therefore, a Buddha reciter who has true faith in Buddha recitation will take propagation of the Buddha recitation as his life. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to preach the Dharma, but you must know that reciting Buddha's name itself is to propagate the Dharma. You must not be wrong in your view, because it may cause you to lack the heart of benefiting all sentient beings. Why do I say that? This lotus friend should ask himself whether he really believes in and accepts Amitabha's salvation. In the Nirvana Sutra, there are 3 kinds of defective learning. The Buddha said, what is defective learning? The Tathagata spoke 12 divisions of the Tripitaka. If only one believed in the 6 directions, but not in the other 6 divisions, this is defective learning. 6 divisions. Even though he is upholding the 6 divisions, he cannot read or explain to others. There is no benefit. This is called defective learning. And also, having upheld these 6 divisions for the purpose of debating, of winning over others, of getting profits, if one upholds and recites for these reasons, this is called defective learning. In this sutra, it is said that there are 3 kinds of defective learning. I have mentioned the first one before. For example, if he only believes in the holy path based on self-power, but does not believe in that easy Buddha recitation Dharma path based on Buddha power, this is also defective learning. Master Genshin once said, the Buddha said, my words are like the honey. Both sides are as sweet as the middle part. You should accept all of them. Therefore, if you only believe that the evil people will fall into hell, but not believe that by one recitation they go to the Western land, Pure Land, then that is called an evil view. The Buddha says that for what I taught, you should not have discrimination, but to accept all. Just like eating honey. The middle part is sweet, and the side part is sweet too. If you only believe in falling into hell by evil deeds, but not believe in reciting Namo Amitabha Buddha once, you can attain rebirth in the land of ultimate bliss, then your view is evil and extreme. That is to say, you fall to the side and do not stand in the middle path to look at the issues. Then look at the issues in the middle. We believe in good and evil karma. We believe in that good deeds have good consequences and evil deeds have evil consequences. At the same time, we also believe that Buddha recitation can turn evil into good and enable one to attain rebirth. We believe that all mortals who committed evil deeds can be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss by reciting the Buddha's name and aspiring for rebirth. We believe that the true merits and virtues of the name can break the false evils of the heavenly human beings. Then if you cannot fully have faith in and accept it, This is defective learning. This is the first kind of defective learning. The second kind of defective learning is for the Dharma path that we believe in. We listen to have faith in and accept, but we do not have the heart to benefit all sentient beings. If you only want to be a self-accomplished person, you've not really realized the spirit of Buddhism. You don't know that you have to learn the Buddhist compassion and benefit all sentient beings. This is also a demonstration of not having faith. Because a person who has truly received the grace of Amitabha will naturally try very hard to persuade others to have faith in and accept. Of course, there are many ways to persuade others to believe. As I said just now, if you can preach the Dharma, you can guide them and give them a peace of mind by preaching. If you don't know how to preach the Dharma, reciting the Buddha's name itself is propagating the Dharma. Just like the Gatha of dedication made by Master Shandao, which says, "May the resulting merits be distributed everywhere without discrimination. May we all aspire to perfect alignment for the sake of other beings, and we are born in the land of peace and joy." This is benefiting oneself and others, because Amitabha Buddha equally gives his merits and virtues of his name to all sentient beings. When we recite the Buddha's name, we need to think of giving the merits and virtues of the Buddha recitation equally to all connected sentient beings. We hope that all connected sentient beings will develop the heart of bodhicitta by aspiring to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. Practicing Buddha recitation is the best way to benefit ourselves, because the name of the Buddha flows out through Buddha reciter's body, mouth, and mind, making others benefit from the Dharma. This is already benefiting others. Demonstrating our joyful face after receiving the Dharma is propagating the Dharma. But once there was a lotus friend who happily recited the Buddha's name every day, because he knew that in this life Amitabha Buddha would definitely liberate him by sending him to the land of ultimate bliss. Every time he thought about it, he was overjoyed. So all day long, no matter he recited the Buddha's name or did everything else, he was joyful. A lay disciple of the holy path asked him, "Why are you so happy every day?" "I study Buddhism nervously entirely every day. I don't feel any Dharma bliss." This lotus friend answered, "Recite Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha will definitely save and embrace us without letting us go." After the lay disciple heard this, he followed him and recited the Buddha's name every day. He came over to his house every day to listen to the Venerable's Dharma talk. Finally, this lay disciple also believed in and accepted Amitabha's salvation. At last he said to our lotus friend, "I finally have Dharma bliss. I saw the light and the hope. It turns out that Amitabha Buddha has been waiting for me, watching over me and guarding me." So if one truly receives Amitabha's compassionate salvation, the face and gestures that he shows is propagating the Dharma. If we can propagate the Buddha recitation, we are truly understanding Amitabha's compassion, and we want to spread this great compassion. As we say with the mind of great compassion, the Dharma can be so pervasively transformed living beings. This is indeed repaying the kindness of the Buddha. If you don't have the heart to benefit all sentient beings, this is also defective learning. There's another defective learning, which is to read and study the sutras for solving one's own life and death. is only for the purpose of debating with others. The goal is to win others over. This kind of intention actually is pursuing fame and fortune. Although you are studying Buddhism, you will get no practical benefits. Instead, you add on negative and arrogant habits, causing you and others to commit evil karma of slandering the Dharma. This is also a defective learning. Our Buddha recitation path is for the purpose of solving the problem of life and death. If it is only for the sake of debate, it is meaningless. This is also a sign of not having the heart. I once told a story. There was a great Zen master in the Song dynasty named Jingyuan. He began his studies with the fifth patriarch Zen master Fayan. Zen master Kekchen was very knowledgeable about the sutras, and studied with many great Zen monks. Therefore, he was a very wise person and proficient in the sutras and teachings. But he had a very strong habit of debating and liked to debate with others. Zen Master Fayan saw this, and in order to shape him into a Dharma general, he was very strict with him and did not show any human kindness. No matter what Zen Master Kekchen said, he didn't accept. In other words, he didn't approve of anything he said. On one occasion, Zen Master Kekchen went to Zen Master Fayan's room again for advice on the teachings. But without saying a few words, he started to debate with Zen Master Fayan again. Zen Master Fayan said to him, "You know so much. Can you defeat death? In the future, when you are dying, you'll be able to test it." Finally, Zen Master Kekchen had no choice but to get angry, hateful, and worried. So he spoke something rudely to Zen Master Fayan. Then he left in anger. Zen Master Fayan did not ask him to stay, but said, "You'll understand what I'm saying after you have suffered a severe illness." Soon after Zen Master Kekchen left, he got sick with typhoid fever. He tried to cope with the current condition with what he had learned, but he could not do anything about it. It was only then that he understood the meaning of what Zen Master Fayan said. Finally, he returned to Zen Master Fayan and eventually became a great Dharma general. We say that the matter of life and death is a big concern. We have to firmly recite the Buddha's name, pay attention to the Buddha recitation. If you recite the Buddha's name not for rebirth, then you have defective learning and insufficient faith. When we are not afraid of being unable to preach the Dharma to liberate sentient beings. So the ancient master said, "I only worry that I cannot become a Buddha. If I become the Buddha, there is no need to worry that I'm unable to preach the Dharma to liberate all sentient beings." That's right. We should only worry about not becoming Buddhas. How can we become Buddhas without being able to speak the Dharma to sentient beings? We say that we only worry about not being able to worry, and not to worry about not becoming Buddha. As long as we can be reborn, we can become Buddhas. If we become Buddhas, we must be able to liberate all sentient beings in the 10 directions. Therefore, one can complete the merits and virtues of becoming a Buddha and liberating sentient beings. It is like a real dragon that can generate clouds and rain, showering the whole world. If it is not a real dragon, it is useless with even more water. On the contrary, once it enters the water, the clay dragon will be dissolved. Rather than being able to liberate every sentient being, it will be taken over by the other side. Therefore, attaining irrevocable ultimate bliss, we can actually take advantage of the merits and virtues of Amitabha's vow power. Naturally, in all places of the 10 directions, we can liberate all sentient beings. And at that time, when you liberate sentient beings, you feel free and at ease. It is like playing in a playground. Very easy, very comfortable, very joyful. Just like Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. If people must be saved by throwing a certain body, he will manifest in that body and speak the Dharma for them. We Buddhists talk about propagating the proper Dharma. What is the proper Dharma? Propagating this name of Namo Amitabha Buddha is the proper Dharma. In Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha said, upholding the proper Dharma is called Buddha recitation samadhi. That is to say, the Buddha recitation Dharma path is the proper Dharma. Not only is it the proper Dharma, it is also the supreme Dharma. For example, in the Contemplation Sutra, the sending beings of the 3 lowest levels meet good knowledge advisors who only teach them to recite the Buddha's name instead of anything else. It is said that in the Sutra there are various ways of consolation, telling him the wonderful Dharma, to urge him to recite the Buddha's name. Teaching others to recite the Buddha's name is the supremely wonderful Dharma. So when we propagate the Buddha recitation Dharma path, we are propagating the proper Dharma, the wonderful Dharma. It is the wonderful Dharma for the right people at the right time. The ancient said, a jade cup without a bottom is not useful, although it is precious. In other words, a cup made of jade without a bottom is precious but not practical. Although all the other Buddhist Dharma paths are also Dharma treasures, but they're difficult to practice, they're not for the right people at the right time. And for sensitive beings, if you practice a difficult path, there must be no cultivation and no attainment. It's like a jade cup without a bottom. It can't hold water like us. So the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas are urging us to propagate the Buddha recitation Dharma path. Let's tell a story. The Bodhisattva Manjushri and Bodhisattva Smritabhadra once advised Venerable Phazar, telling him that in the age of Dharma decline, only Buddha recitation corresponded to sentient beings' talents. Venerable Phazar was an eminent monk of the Tang dynasty. Because his thoughts and practices were similar to those of our founder, Master Shandao, later generations consider him to be the reappearance of Master Shandao. Therefore, he was honored as the latter Shandao. Shortly after he became a monk, at one time when his mind was very still, he saw his alms bowl manifest a holy realm. There was a monastery in the middle of the high mountains. It was written in 5 big characters, Great Holy Bamboo Forest Temple. The temple was glorious and solemn with golden light. It was all made of 7 treasures. Nearby were gardens and woods. It is like what the Amitabha Sutra says, and the ground is yellow gold, everywhere surrounded by 7 tiers of railings, 7 layers of netting, and 7 rows of trees. Master Phazar was moved and amazed. He thought to himself, this should be in the Saha world. But where exactly is this place? So he asked predecessors about it. And when they heard his description, they told him that it should be in Mount Wutai, where Manjushri Bodhisattva manifested. So Master Phazar went to Mount Wutai. to look for this holy place and stayed temporarily in the Fogwang temple on Mount Wutai. One night, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., a light suddenly shone on Master Faza. So he followed the light and walked forward. When he came to a place, he saw 2 children. It is said they were Sudana and Nanda. These 2 children were waiting for Master Faza. Then they guided Master into a temple with 5 big characters, great holy bamboo forest temple. It turned out that this was the holy place manifested by the alms bowl. The temple was decorated with jewels. There were also 7 rows of trees. After entering the temple, Master Faza entered the lecture hall. Sure enough, he saw Bodhisattva's Manjushri on the west side of the hall and Bodhisattva Samantabhadra on the east side, both sitting on the lion throne, surrounded by numerous bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas Manjushri and Bodhisattva Samantabhadra were preaching the Dharma to these bodhisattvas. At this time, Master Faza came to the front of the 2 bodhisattvas respectfully. He bowed and asked the 2 bodhisattvas to give him advice. Master Faza also asked, sentient beings of the age of Dharma decline are far away from the time when Shakyamuni Buddha was alive. Their knowledge is very shallow and their roots are inferior. They have deep evil karma and are full of worries. Their original pure Buddha nature is unable to be revealed. But the Buddha's teachings are like a vast ocean. I don't understand what kind of Dharma is suitable for this kind of roots, and which kind of Dharma path is easy to achieve Buddhahood. Bodhisattva's Manjushri was the first one to advise him. You should practice Buddha recitation Dharma path, and only Buddha recitation Dharma path is suitable for the age of Dharma decline. Among all the practices, there is nothing more shortening the Buddha recitation and making offerings to the triple gem. Make offerings to the triple jewel. If you do this, you will naturally be able to attain complete attainment quickly, and have both blessings and wisdom. I am Manjushri in my past life. Through Buddha recitation and making offerings to the triple jewels, I was able to achieve the wisdom of Buddha. Therefore, you should know that all the Dharma paramitas, deep and subtle samadhi, and all the Buddha's 10 directions are achieved by reciting the Buddha's name. Therefore, Buddha recitation Dharma path is the king of all Dharma paths. Then Master Faza asked, how do I recite the Buddha's name? Then Bodhisattva Manjushri said, passing from here through hundreds of thousands of millions of Buddha lands to the west, there is a world called ultimate bliss. In this land there is a Buddha called Amitabha. That Buddha is propagating the Dharma and his vow power is inconceivable. You should keep reciting it. At the end of your life, you will be reborn in the western land of ultimate bliss, and never retreat, speedily attaining Buddhahood. After these words, Bodhisattva Manjushri and Bodhisattva Samantabhadra extended their golden hands at the same time to touch the top of Master Faza's head and gave him the blessing and said, because you recite the Buddha's name, soon you will attain supreme enlightenment. If there are good men and good women who wish to attain Buddhahood quickly, there is nothing better than reciting the Buddha's name. As long as one is single-mindedly reciting the Buddha's name, naturally he can attain supreme enlightenment quickly. Therefore, Mr. Faza received the prediction of becoming Buddha from the two bodhisattvas. And after such subtle discourse, he rejoiced greatly, bowed 3 times, and left the hall. The 2 children personally walked him out of the temple. When he looked back, the temple had disappeared. When Master Faza made a mark on a pile of stones, later he decided to build the great holy bamboo forest temple here. He recorded this experience and passed it on to later generations. Afterwards, Mr. Faza devoted himself to the Pure Land Dharma path, exclusively recited Namo Amitabha Buddha, and was eventually reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. This is why he was honored as the 4th patriarch of the Pure Land School by the later generations. There was another Zen master, Da Hong, who exclusively practiced and attained the lotus flower samadhi. He made Bodhisattva Samantabhadra appear to him to teach him to recite Namo Amitabha Buddha, and urged him to vow to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. At that time, Bodhisattva Samantabhadra came on a great white elephant and taught him, although what you seek is the sudden and profound Dharma, in today's age when the 5 turbidities are flourishing, your roots are also very shallow. So it is difficult for you to achieve enlightenment through self-power. Now I'll tell you Dharma on how to get out of the cycle of life and death quickly. That is exclusively reciting the name of Amitabha Buddha. Then it is certain you will be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. So even for such a great Zen master who is living in the mountains, practicing diligently, wearing grass and eating wild fruits every day, and finally attaining lotus flower samadhi, he was still far away from escaping the 6 paths and becoming a Buddha. Even Bodhisattva Samantabhadra said that his roots were shallow, let alone sentient beings of our age. Just as Bodhisattva Manjushri and Bodhisattva Samantabhadra said that only Buddha recitation Dharma path matches our inferior nature. Shakyamuni Buddha said that we are mortals with weak thought. Master Daisha explained in his collection on the land of peace and joy that the mortals of current time, their faith is as light as a feather. They are also known as the indeterminate class, or as the external ordinary beings. Master Daisha said that our faith is as light as a feather. And when a breeze blows, it will sway with the wind to the east or west. So light feathers refer to ordinary mortals like us, whose minds are very weak and fragile, and will advance or retreat with the circumstance to create good or evil. Therefore, we say that the mind, Master Shendo said, even if we have a sincere heart, it's like writing on water. Or our vow is like writing a drawing on the surface of water. When we get to the 2nd stroke, the 1st stroke has disappeared without a trace. A single obstacle will destroy your so-called pure mind and so-called faith, and you'll be left with nothing. According to the Infinite Life Sutra, what we think contradicts what we say, we speak without sincerity. That is to say, the karma of the internal mind and the external body and mouth do not correspond to each other. That is to say, we appear to be virtuous and progressive on the outside. Apparently, we pretend to be a good person. a person who can practice vigorously. In fact, internally we harbor a fake mind and go through all kinds of greedy, angry, evil, pretentious, cunning, and deceitful thoughts. These are the evil nature that are difficult to subdue. In fact, internally we already have infinite vexation and 840 million thoughts. Every thought is the cause for the 3 evil paths. So according to the Infinite Life Sutra, they think only of doing evil, their mouths continuously speak malice, and their whole bodies they are forever committing evil. In their whole lives they did not do one good deed. And all our 3 karmas, body, mouth, and mind, are evil karmas. There is no good deeds to speak of. Just ask yourself frankly, is it right? It appears there may be people doing good things, but those good things are all goodness mixed with poisons. It is not the goodness. Then how can you rely on the contaminated goodness you do to get liberation? Just like Emperor Wu Liang asked Master Bodhidharma, I have built so many monasteries and supported so many monks. Do I have a lot of merits? Master Bodhidharma said, there is no merits. Because it is not the goodness of the threefold wisdom of emptiness. It is not the pure good, it is only blessings. For sending means like us, as the Earth Store Sutra says, in each and every thought of the multi-beings in the South Jambudvipa, there is nothing but karma and nothing but sins. Every thought we have is evil karma. We are beings who are possessed by vexation. Our essence is delusions and vexations. Except for delusions, there is no other thought. Until the end of our lives, our delusions are always wandering. So in the Contemplation Sutra, the Buddha says, I, the Tathagata, shall discourse on pure karma who are afflicted by the enemy evil passions. Our Buddha recitation Dharma path is what the Buddha called pure karma. The Buddha recitation Dharma path is for us sentient beings of the future world. What kind of sentient beings? Sentient beings who are afflicted by the enemy evil passions. Look at the modifier. It's all sentient beings without exception. Don't feel that you are an exception. As long as he is a person, he is victimized by the thief of worries. That is to say, we have heavy afflictions and specialize in doing bad deeds. The thief of afflictions is always there, coming to us whenever possible, and making us greedy, angry, and ignorant so that we are unable to gain pure mind. According to the Contemplation Sutra, sentient beings will become defiled and evil and be oppressed by the 5 kinds of sufferings. All sentient beings are defiled and evil and oppressed by the 5 kinds of suffering. Therefore, we are not good people and we do not have the ability to cultivate. We can only rely on what the Buddha said in the Contemplation Sutra to uphold the name of the Buddha of Infinite Life. This is the Buddha Station Dharma path. It is the only one that can save people like us who have such inferior roots. Mr. Honen quoted this quote from Treatise on the Lamp for the Latter Day of the Law. In the world of the age of Dharma decline, all sentient beings are evil. We are now in the age of Dharma decline. All sentient beings are evil. In Buddhism, you are evil if you have vexations. Therefore, only the Buddha recitation Dharma path can save evil people like us. Because the Buddha recitation Dharma path is attaining nirvana without eliminating afflictions. That's why Shakyamuni Buddha, among all the Dharma paths, especially reserved the Buddha recitation Dharma path for us. Because only the Buddha recitation Dharma path can save evil people like us. In determining the central western direction by explaining Taoist communications correct, there's a discourse saying that when all the other sutras are vanishing, only Amitabha's teaching is developing and benefiting all sentient beings. In the age of Dharma decline, when all the other sutras are extinguished, since the Buddha recitation Dharma path can benefit all sentient beings, it becomes even more prosperous. Because we are such evil people, only Buddha recitation Dharma path is appropriate for us. Therefore, Mr. Genshin said, there is no other convenient way to save a person with such heavy karma. Reciting the Buddha's name is the only way to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. Just like in the Contemplation Sutra, for the evildoer of the lowest level, of the lowest grade, who commits these 5 years transgressions, 10 evil actions, and all kinds of evils, there is no other expedient Dharma path that can be taught. In other words, we are too sick to be saved by other medicines, and only by Buddha recitation can we attain rebirth. Why did Buddha mention the lower level of the lowest grade? Firstly, shows the Buddha recitation Dharma path is extraordinary. As Master Honen said, saying the most virtuous and supreme Dharma path for the most vicious sinners with the most inferior roots. Just like if a person can cure a disease that cannot be cured by any other doctor in the world, he is a miracle doctor. A person with so much heavy bad karma that cannot be saved by any other Dharma path was able to rely on the 10 Buddha recitations for rebirth. It shows that the Buddha recitation Dharma path is the supreme Dharma path. Secondly, the lowest level of lowest grade shows that there is not a single saint who cannot be saved by the Buddha recitation Dharma path. Exactly as what Venerable Lao Yu said. The water on the high mountain has the ability to descend to the deep valley. The most supreme Dharma has the power to free even the most wicked and inferior people. Just like water flowing downward. The water on the top of the mountain flows down to the deepest valley. It has such an ability. Similarly, the most supreme Dharma, the highest Dharma, can liberate the lowest roots. It has such an ability. The Buddha recitation Dharma path is able to liberate even those who commit the 5 years of transgressions, 10 evils, and all kinds of evils, and save the beings who committed all sins. Who else can't be saved by reciting the Buddha's name? So in our time, propagating and praising Buddha recitation is very necessary. At the same time, the so-called other Dharma paths, when we become Buddhas, will naturally complete all at once. We have to hold on to the essential benefits and not to worry about everything else. So don't put the cart before the horse, you will gain nothing. Instead, you will lose the great benefit of rebirth. To propagate the Buddha recitation Dharma path is to propagate all the Dharma paths in general. Because the Buddha recitation Dharma path encompasses all paths. Because as long as you are reborn, everything is complete. If you don't attain a rebirth, you lose everything. So propagating this name is truly and completely benefiting oneself as well as others. There is a happening in edited tales of auspicious happenings related to the rebirth in the Western Pure Land. During the Tang Dynasty, there was a late disciple named Fang Zhu. He died suddenly and went to hell to seek the King Yama, who smiled at him with respect and said, according to the file, you once advised an old man to recite the Buddha's name. This old man has already been reborn in the Pure Land. With such a merit, you can also be reborn in the Pure Land. This is why I specially summoned you to meet with me. Fang Zhu said, I previously made a vow to recite 10,000 volumes of the Diamond Sutra. I also want to go to Mount Watai to pay a pilgrimage. These 2 vows have not yet been completed. I do not want to be reborn now. The King Yama persuaded him, although to recite the Diamond Sutra and visit Mount Watai are good, but it is better to be reborn in the Pure Land sooner. The King Yama was patient and instructive. Its enemies were often very strong and difficult to convince. Fangzhu still insisted on his original viewpoint. When King Yama knew that he was difficult to persuade, he released him back to the mortal world. This case tells us that if we urge and help others to recite the Buddha's name and to attain rebirth, we can also attain rebirth ourselves. Furthermore, King Yama was so moved by his deed that he paid respect to him and asked to meet with him especially. Therefore, if we propagate the Buddha recitation, all the gods and goddesses of heaven and earth will respect us, the Buddha reciters. In transcription of the Sermon of Morihei funeral service during his lifetime, Master Honen once quoted a story to illustrate the merits and virtues of urging others to recite the Buddha's name can also make one attain rebirth. Therefore, the merits and virtues of urging others to recite the Buddha's name are also very great. The propagation of Buddhism is both beneficial to oneself and others. This is the third point. Fourthly, from the perspective of multiple good roots and multiple blessings, all dharmas are totally included in the exclusive Buddha recitation. We'll save that for the next lesson. Okay. Namo Amitabha Buddha.